I stood at the very back of the magnificent ballroom, utterly invisible. The lights, the flowers, the hundreds of wealthy, smiling faces, none of them acknowledged my existence. My daughter, Sarah, was marrying the man of her dreams, but I, her biological father, was barely a guest. The moment that crystallized my decade of agonizing pain was watching her stepdad, Richard, stride confidently to the microphone. He was about to give the speech, the definitive father of the bride address. My blood ran cold, anticipating the inevitable, arrogant erasure of my life's contribution. But that perfect, polished moment was about to be utterly shattered by a single, fragile note Sarah had kept hidden since she was 5 years old. My name is Ethan Miller. I was 50. My divorce from Sarah's mother, Elinor, a decade ago, wasn't just painful, it was financially catastrophic. I ran a successful custom woodworking business, but a massive supply chain failure and a resulting lawsuit wiped out every asset I had. I didn't lose Sarah because I stopped loving her. I lost her to financial stability. Elinor quickly married Richard Thorne, a highly successful, impeccably dressed real estate developer, a man who exuded wealth and unshakable security. Richard didn't just marry Elinor, he systematically purchased his way into Sarah's life. He paid for her Ivy League tuition, secured her internships, and provided the flawless, risk-free environment I could no longer offer. Sarah, ambitious and craving that perfect, seamless life, slowly and gently distanced herself. Her words, though kind, were a dagger. "Dad, I appreciate you, but Richard provides the absolute stability I need for my career. It's easier this way." At the wedding, the vast difference between our worlds was undeniable. Richard had paid for everything: the venue, the six-figure dress, the first-class honeymoon. He was the host, the patriarch, the man who had bought the right to be called father. I was relegated to a corner table near the emergency exit, a quiet, forgotten reminder of the failure Sarah had moved past. The reception was an opulent spectacle. When Richard stood up for his toast, he commanded the room. He looked magnificent in his bespoke tuxedo, holding the microphone like a king holding court. Richard, smooth, charismatic voice, projecting confidence. "Friends, family, look at Sarah, my beautiful daughter. I remember when I first came into her life, she was a young girl with limitless potential, but perhaps lacking guidance. I saw that potential, and I ensured she had the stable, strong foundation necessary to achieve it." My hands clenched under the table. He was using my daughter, my blood, as a stepping stone to praise his own financial prowess. Richard, from financing her education at Stanford to advising her on her first major career move, I am so proud that I was there to provide that reliable foundation for her to grow into the elegant woman standing before you. Sarah has always sought out reliability and quality, whether it's in a husband or in a father figure. He paused, a calculated beat of silence, letting the implied comparison hang in the air. He never mentioned my name. He spoke for 7 minutes, detailing his financial contributions and guidance, subtly painting himself as the architect of her entire life, and me as the irrelevant past. The guests clapped politely, buying the narrative. As Richard finished, Sarah, still glowing with bridal joy, reached into the bodice of her wedding dress. She pulled out a small, folded piece of yellowed, brittle paper. The room hushed, assuming it was a sweet, spontaneous poem. "Sarah, thank you, Richard. That was a lovely speech about provision. Now I have one more thing I want to share. This is a note I wrote 20 years ago on my 5th birthday. I kept it because it defines what a father truly means to me, regardless of the cost of the celebration." Sarah unfolded the wrinkled paper. Her voice, when she started reading the childish, uneven script, cracked with sudden, profound emotion. "Sarah, reading the note, Dear Dad, I love the castle you made for my toys. You worked all night and it has a secret door. You told me true stability isn't money. It's knowing someone will always build the secret door for you. You are my best builder. Thank you, Dad. Love, Sarah." She paused, looking directly at the pale Richard. Then, slowly, deliberately, she scanned the room until her eyes locked on to mine at the back table. Sarah, her voice suddenly strong and clear, resonating through the microphone. That castle was built from scrap wood, recycled cardboard, and broken hinges by Ethan Miller, my father. He worked 3 days straight in a cold, unheated garage after his business collapsed, heating the space with a tiny kerosene lamp because he couldn't afford a real present. A sudden, paralyzing silence fell over the massive ballroom, the kind of silence where the sound of 300 people holding their breath is audible. Richard stood by the microphone, his perfectly tailored jaw utterly slack. Elinor stared at the carpet. Sarah, for 10 years, I believed Richard's money was stability. I let him, and society, convince me that the man who paid the tuition was the real foundation. But this note reminds me, Richard paid for the mansion. My father built me a secret door out of poverty and shame, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the essential difference between a provider and a parent. Sarah laid the microphone down, her task complete. She walked purposefully from the head table. She walked past her stunned mother, past the frozen, humiliated Richard, and straight through the stunned crowd toward my corner. She reached me, tears streaming down her face, and pulled me into an embrace so fierce it felt like it was healing 10 years of distance. Sarah, Dad, I am so sorry. Richard's speech was the final arrogant lie. It forced me to see that he was stealing your honor, not just your role. I forgot the real meaning of stability. Please, forgive me for choosing convenience over conscience. She took my hand, my rough, working hands, and led me back toward the head table, the silent eyes of the 300 guests following our every step. She stopped directly beside the paralyzed Richard. Sarah, looking at Richard, her voice cold and final. Richard, the wedding is over. Your speech is concluded. You are dismissed. She turned to the microphone, her eyes glistening. Sarah, ladies and gentlemen, my father, Ethan Miller, is here. He is not wealthy, but he is honest, and he is a master builder. He built the foundation of my heart. Dad, the next toast is yours. Say whatever you want. I stood before the microphone, my hands finally steady. I didn't insult Richard or lecture the guests. Ethan, to my daughter, Sarah, and her new husband. May your marriage always have honesty, integrity, and the enduring strength of a castle with a secret door. Richard and Elinor, unable to endure the shame, left the reception minutes later, utterly disgraced. The silence had been shattered by an undeniable, written truth. The expensive facade had been utterly stripped away by a child's simple note. Sarah's note didn't just embarrass Richard, it gave me back my identity. The guests, initially shocked, were soon surrounding me, wanting to know the full, honest story of the scrap, wood castle. My integrity, which had been buried under a decade of poverty and shame, was finally visible. Sarah and I now speak every day. She realized that the money Richard provided was merely temporary comfort, but the love and effort I gave, even in my darkest times, was the true, lasting stability. I used my skills to start a small, successful woodworking studio, specializing in custom heirloom pieces, building with integrity just like the castle. At my daughter's wedding, her stepdad gave a speech to claim the credit and erase me. But when she read a 20-year old note about a secret door, the truth of a father's true, honest love silenced everyone in the room and gave me back my rightful place. Always remember, the price tag on a gift means nothing compared to the heart that built it. If you've ever had your honor stolen by someone with more money, share your story in the comments. And if you believe that a father's true worth is measured in devotion, not dollars, hit that like and subscribe button.